From Fiji to Vanuatu on Freestyle 2, then we joined Nerida in Port Vila on Efate Island in Vanuatu, then go south to Tana, then north to Espiritu Santo, and then further we fly into Honiara and Guadalcanal, and then ferries through the islands of the Solomons. We had to fly from New Georgia to Bougainville, then take a ferry across to New Britain, to Rabaul, Papua New Guinea. Bougainville is also in Papua New Guinea. A trip to Tana Island, Vanuatu, provided us with 5 stories that I hope you will find interesting. With 7 crew on the yacht Nerida, we sailed from Port Vila to Resolution Bay, Tana Island. The skipper went ashore to request permission to anchor in the bay. He gave us the okay and we went ashore too. We politely bowed to a group of Tana men on the beach. The skipper was speaking pidgin English to the islanders. I gave some kava, which is dried roots of a pepper plant, as a thank you for letting us, for their hospitality really. The Tana men were pleased that we knew of their customs and asked if I drank kava. I said yes. I learned about its importance in Fiji. They said, would you like to join us and drink some kava? I took Kathy's hand and we started to follow the men. They stopped and told me, no, only men drink kava in Vanuatu. So Kathy stayed with Hans and the others while I went with the locals. Further down the beach, they decided it was the good place to sit down. I hadn't noticed, but one of the men carried a large plastic water bottle and another had a large bowl. We sat down and the leader separated the roots and gave everyone a handful. This was a new way of dealing with kava for me, so I watched and copied the men. They chewed and ground the roots with their teeth and then spat the masticated roots into the bowl. We all did the same and pretty soon we were ready to add the water. One man took control of the stirring, the mix, and then let things settle a little. A coconut shell cup was dipped into the brew and offered to me. I said, no, the senior should go first. And they said, thank you. So I was number 2, actually. We carried on drinking, and I never gave it much thought about I was drinking what others had chewed and spat into the bowl. Happily, later we walked back to the others, and they told us about the big festival that would start as the sun set in a few hours' time. The occasion was special because 2 16-year-old boys had come of age and were being brought back into the village as men. These boys were the last boys to experience this ceremony. All boys born after these 2 had been circumcised at birth. The boys were taken from the village 30 days ago by elder village men and taught how to be a husband, father, and a man in the village. The men used bamboo knife for the operation and local medicine to prevent infection. Another couple of weeks with the uncles, and tonight they will be brought back into the village as men. We were told there are 3 main villages on this part of the island, and they will all get together tonight and will dance until morning. We were invited to join in the celebrations. The girls and ladies had been busy working hard to make their brightly stained grass skirts. Every grass skirt had a different pattern and mix of colours. We never saw 2 that were the same. The population of this part of the island is about 900, and I believe they were all there. The boys, now men, were led into looking very proud. We didn't understand the speeches, but pretty soon the dancing started. Basically, there were two circles of people. The ladies' circle was outside the men's circle. The rhythm was provided by the feet of the dancers. Each barefoot slap on the dry earth was the beat, and it followed the same beat all the time. 1, 2, 3, and a short pause, then the same again and again. There were no musical instruments at all. On a rest break, I met the son of the tribe's official storyteller. He was about 25 and had been groomed to become the next storyteller when his father dies or is too old to do the job. It is a great responsibility to be the historical, cultural, human archive for the tribe. As his father is still alive and well, he can't officially tell any stories. But I convinced him to tell me a story unofficially. The storyteller's son went to missionary school and his English ability was pretty good. He started the story. A big ship arrived and anchored in the bay. The white men with funny hats came to our island by boat. The head man kept saying something and we couldn't understand what he said. He kept asking and seemed to get angry that we didn't answer or didn't understand. He reached down and picked up some soil. He pointed at the soil and said something, and we didn't know what he said, so he got more angry. We didn't understand the question, but we did tell him that he was holding soil or mud in his hand. He repeated our word to the man that was writing. This day in 1774, we landed on the island of Tana, the man wrote in the book. In fact, the word Tana is our word for mud or soil. There is no written history, only oral history. The villagers were actually laughing at Captain James Cook, who visited the area aboard his ship, Resolution, and told his scribe that they had landed on the island of Tana, and they named the bay after their ship. I thanked the storyteller's son, and together we returned to the stomping beat of the dance. Tana has an active volcano called Mount Yasur, and the next day, Kathy and I climbed up to the top of this active volcano that spews ash and magma every 10 minutes. Laying flat on our stomachs on the rim of the cone, we could see two glowing pores about 100 feet below us inside the crater. The two holes take it in turns to spit lava into the air, and they never stop. We lay there watching the volcano perform. The lava went above our heads and fell back into the crater. I was like a child. I wanted to stay there until it was dark enough to get a night photo of the action. Okay, Kathy said. And we lay there with sun on our backs and hot ash under our bellies. We were just chatting while we waited. The two of us had ceased to pay attention to the volcano. It became sort of ordinary after a while. Suddenly, a glowing piece of lava landed between us. It was about the size of a small dinner plate. We both rolled away from the heat, and we could still see our imprints of our bodies in the ash. We had been about 5 feet apart, and the lava had landed between us. We were so lucky not to be hit. We continued talking about it and looking at how lucky we were, and then eventually it got a little bit darker and we were able to get our twilight photographs that we wanted, and then we walked down before it was too dark. I had read about the Joan from cargo cult people before I left Vancouver, and I hoped to see or meet some of the people. One story about the cargo cult has a logical understanding, but we cannot verify it. During the Second World War, the American fleet used the islands as a staging area to supply ships. The cargo was dropped by parachute, and the GIs collected it and kept it safe. The GIs were friendly and gave rewards, like candy or gum, to the locals that told them where the parachutes had landed. The GI in charge was named John or Joe, they're not sure, and he was from the USA. So this gave birth to the Joe or John from cargo cult. We did see a local wearing a GI war helmet, but that was all. Little note, Tana is about 550 square kilometers in size. There are 5 indigenous languages spoken on the island. Captain Cook named the 83 Vanuatu Islands the New Hebrides in 1774. The country became independent in 1980 and was renamed Vanuatu. Tana was called Parei at the time of Captain Cook's visit. Travelling north towards the Solomon Islands aboard the yacht Nedida, we docked on Melakula Island. The skipper asked me to find some bread. There were no regular type shops. I asked a girl if they had bread on the island. She took me to a small building and I met the baker. I asked for 2 loaves and he said to come back in 4 hours. I returned to the yacht and told the skipper. Later, I returned to the baker's place. The baker said, sorry, he only had 1 loaf and hoped that would be enough. When I saw the size of the loaf, I smiled and said, 1 loaf will be just fine. The baking tray was the bottom part of a 45-gallon drum. A day later, back on Nedida, one of the Australians was dragging the hook through the water behind our vessel. He managed to catch a big mahi-mahi, also known as a dolphin fish or a dorado, depends on where you are, which we all ate, sashimi style. When we got to Espiritu Santo, we said goodbye to the people on Nedida, and we found Alan Powers and went scuba diving. $1 Million Point is famous for having many wrecks from the Second World War. We dove on the wreck of the ship called President Coolidge. It was very interesting and lots of interesting fish down there. It was fantastic. Further north, we went on to Maleta Island, northeast of Honiara, and in one coastal village we found girls that were heating small pieces of clamshells to make them turn pink or red even. In that part of the world, a bride price is paid with red seashells, which are not that easy to find. So they cheat a little bit and heat the clams and it maybe turns pink. It depends on the moisture content. In another coastal village, we met a man that was sitting in an old hut with 17 human skulls. The village was on the coast and their ancestors were fishermen. Over the years, a tribe from the inland had attacked to steal the village daughters. The bad men usually came at night and there was no place to escape. This old man's ancestors had a bright idea. They decided to build a man-made island just 100 meters offshore and move the villagers there. And they did this using their fishing boats. And next time the inlanders came to attack and try and steal the daughters, they found the original village empty and never came back again. in respect for the one who had the island idea, when he died his head was saved and kept in a basket of woven palm leaves. 16 generations later, there are now 17 skulls. And the man I'm talking to, his skull will be number 18 when he dies.